Welcome to Disciple Dojo. This is the final episode of our series of reviews of the Holman Handbook resources. The first video, we looked at the Church History Handbook. In the last video, we looked at the New Testament Handbook. So we're going to finish by looking at the Old Testament Handbook. Holman sent me these resources. They didn't pay me for this review. They just sent me these to take a look at. And for these, I'm looking at them live. In other words, I'm recording my first look at these. I haven't gone through and used them over a period of weeks like I usually do with study Bible reviews. You're seeing what I'm seeing for the first time as I flip through these resources. So be sure to check out the previous two videos where we looked at the Church History Handbook and the New Testament Handbook. If you find them helpful, we would love for you to show that by subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so. And with that out of the way, let's look at the Old Testament Handbook. So it's the same format as the others, cloth covered, gold embossed writing. It has a ribbon bookmark. So let's look at what's in it. Just like the New Testament, after the opening letter from the publisher and the essay, you have book by book through the Old Testament. Some of the books are grouped together. For instance, all the minor prophets are going to be grouped together, and Ezra and Nehemiah will be grouped together. So the same letter from the publisher, our friend Andy McLean talks about, again, the purpose of this handbook is to take the material that helps you better understand the books, in this case of the Old Testament, and present it in a visually appealing way, in a way that's intuitive and informative, that pays attention to aesthetics and quality and artistry of craftsmanship. And that's something that has impressed me about the other volumes that I've looked at in this series. They are well made. They look good sitting on the shelf together. They look good when you open them up. The material is presented very well. So after that, then you have an essay, God's Timely and Inspired Word, Introduction, the composition and canon of the Old Testament, the making of the Old Testament, a personal project turned community project, then phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, how the Old Testament canon came together, God's Spirit guiding the process, looks at the role that divine inspiration plays in a work that includes editing and later revisions, the reception of the Old Testament, why our canon is on target. So this is defending, and the our canon, this would be Protestant. Holman is a Protestant publishing house. So the our canon would be the Protestant and Jewish Hebrew canon, not Eastern Orthodox or Roman Catholic canons, which are larger, and then a conclusion. After that, book introductions, and it's the same format as the New Testament Handbook. You've got the title of the book with a quick overview summary. The genre of the book is included right here at the beginning. Then you have a brief introduction, author, background, message and purpose, summary, structure. You have an outline of the book. And then, as with the New Testament volumes, this time you have the word study section where they take 3 key Hebrew words that are going to play a significant role in the book, and they go in depth more. So for Genesis, they've chosen Zerah, which is translated as either seed or offspring in the CSB. Why this is a very important term, and I think this should be at the top of the list. This is possibly the most important term in the entire Bible. Then you have Eretz. It can be translated as land. Sometimes it's translated as earth in other translations. And then they chose para, the verb for be fruitful. It's an important word in Genesis. There are other words I think you could have included that I might have included above para, like Adam or Berith. But maybe those are included in later books. I'm not sure. Anyway, you've got a timeline of Genesis. Then you have an overview of creation day by day. And this is nice. It divides it into the different realms, day 1, 2, 3, and 3 is broken up into 2 things where God is forming, and then the corresponding days, day 4, 5, and then day 6 is broken up into 2 where God is filling. The unproductive becomes productive in the first days. The uninhabited becomes inhabited in the third days. This is really nice. This is a good overview. I mean, that's an important concept in Genesis. If you want to see more about this, check out our Superhero Seminary episode where Professor Iron Man, over my shoulder behind me, does a whole session about the structure of the Genesis days. We also have a playlist here on the channel devoted entirely to walking through the days of Genesis. So I like this. It's very simple and easy to grasp intuitively what's going on. You have an overview of early covenants, the commands to Adam and Noah, some recapitulation. Noah is something of a second Adam in the Genesis story. And then Noah and Jesus, how Noah is typologically prefigures the salvation that Jesus will bring. You have salvation after or through judgment, specific Old Testament events. These are not limited to Genesis. In fact, only the flood is one that occurs in Genesis. The rest are Exodus, exile, cross, and the final judgment. A map of Abraham's migration, overview of birthright and blessing, Abraham's family tree, and this is actually laid out as a family tree, dreams in Genesis, an essay about Jacob and Joseph and reconciliation, the promise of Genesis, seeing Jesus in Genesis. The Lord will provide at times where God himself provided a substitute, an overview of Joseph's life, and that's it. Then you come to Exodus. So same thing with the other books. It's a lot of charts, a lot of infographics. You have an illustration of the tabernacle here. In Leviticus, you have the different feasts. You have the atonement sacrifices. Although these, I don't know if I would have called these the atonement sacrifices. I think you could just have called these the sacrifices because not all of them are specifically aimed at atonement. Deuteronomy, I've noticed, is pretty sparse. You just have the title page, about half a page of introduction, a very short outline, the three words, in this case, Berith. So they did put Berith. It's just in Deuteronomy, not in Genesis. Elohim and Shamar. And you have a key verse, places where Jesus quotes Deuteronomy. You do have an overview of the pattern of ancient covenants and how Deuteronomy is structured around Hittite suzerainty treaty covenant. It doesn't tell you that specifically, but it does give you the structure. Another key quote, and then that's it. So Deuteronomy is a super important book, and there's so much in it. I think, like Romans in the New Testament volume that we looked at, I think Deuteronomy kind of got shafted in this. We spent a year here at Disciple Dojo teaching through Deuteronomy chapter by chapter, and there's just way more. So I don't know. I mean, you have to always balance what you include and what you don't include in a entry-level popular handbook. So I'm not faulting this for not being an encyclopedia or a commentary. At the same time, it's just there's light when it comes to things on Deuteronomy. But overall, that's what you're going to find. There's some timelines. This is actually a good timeline, the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom, so you can see how long each king ruled and which kingdom they ruled over. It doesn't incorporate it into the broader history, and it also kind of gives the impression that they went for the same amount of time when the Northern Kingdom was destroyed and dispersed long before the Southern Kingdom. So that could be a little visually misleading. And another, I got to be honest with these critiques, just like with Deuteronomy, Psalms, the longest book in the Hebrew Bible. You have the title page, brief introduction, an outline. And this one, they actually chose 5 terms, not just 3, Ashereh, Kavod, Selah, Torah, and Chesed. There's a Psalms timeline, which is just kind of gives the overview of the beginning of Israel's history. It doesn't place particular Psalms with it. This is just giving it might even be better titled Israel's timeline. A quick note about the different authors of the Psalms, and then 1 page on the different types of Psalms, a list of the Messianic Psalms, God in the Psalms, and then you're on to Proverbs. So for being the longest book in the Bible, again, it's lighter than I expected. It ends with the minor prophets, very, very brief overview, an outline of each book, 3 words for the word study, comparing Jesus and Jonah. You have the Hebrew prophets in history, a timeline of the minor prophets, messianic prophecies, what was going on during the different minor prophets, and then some of the literary parallels among the books in the minor prophets. And then that's it. You got sources and the end of the book. So that is the Old Testament Handbook from Holman References. Now, if you compare it to the New Testament Handbook, you'll see they're the same size. And this would be, I don't know whether it's valid criticism or not, it's just my criticism. The Old Testament is 3 times bigger than the New Testament. So I feel like the Old Testament Handbook should have been bigger than the New Testament Handbook. I think it should go as at least as in depth about the books of the Old Testament as it does about the books of the New Testament, and therefore it would be larger by page count. This gives the misleading impression that the Old Testament and the New Testament are roughly similar, roughly parallel in terms of size and in terms of importance. And obviously, as a teacher who focuses on the Old Testament, that is a view I do not share. So that's probably my criticism of the Old Testament Handbook. For the sake of keeping it roughly the same size, they had to cut out a lot of material. My conclusions are like the New Testament Handbook, the Old Testament Handbook, the information in it, what it does present is good, it's helpful, and it's presented in a way that's visually well done. But my main critique would be, once again, this material is available already in most good study Bibles. So this would be redundant if you already have a good study Bible on your shelf. Just like with the New Testament Handbook, if you don't have a good study Bible, you just have a text-only Bible, this would be a good and helpful supplement to have. This would also be helpful if you are a Sunday school teacher, if you're a Christian educator, if you're a small group leader, a ministry leader. Having this available for people to use to quickly look stuff up when they're studying scripture together, or when you're preparing to teach on something, to teach an overview, to convey information in a simple way to students or people in your study. I could see this being a very helpful resource. So these are the handbook references that Holman sent me: church history, New Testament, Old Testament. Those are my thoughts. This is an overview. You can see whether this is something you'd be interested in or not. And that's the purpose of these reviews, is to let you know what's out there. Thank you to my friend Andy McLean at Holman, the publisher, who sent me these to look at. Hopefully I did them justice. Hopefully Dojo viewers know what they are and can decide whether they're something that they think they want to have. They do look good as coffee table resources or on a decorative bookshelf. They look nice, but the content in them is also good as well, even if it's a little bit light. So those are my thoughts. I hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching. Check out our other resource reviews here on the playlist, Bible reviews and stuff, as well as our other teaching videos where we go in depth on some of these books of the Bible. As always, if you appreciate this ministry, Disciple Dojo is a 501c3 nonprofit. We rely not on YouTube revenue, but on donor support, monthly donors. We don't have a Patreon. We don't sell memberships. We don't do any of that. We just say, if you appreciate this ministry, we would really appreciate you supporting us on a monthly basis, even if it's just a few dollars a month. So that'll do for now. Stay tuned for more here at Disciple Dojo. And in the meantime, as always, keep training.